Hello everybody. I wanted to make a short video about the Salvation's Edge DPS meta since I am finally done gathering all the data I wanted to on this. And let's just start off with Herald. I already have Herald selected here. Witness is gone. Okay. I wanted to start off with Ergo Sum. Ergo Sum's damage is based off of your impact stat here, so it'll deal about 20% of what your sword is dealing. So if you deal, like here it says 16 like K to a boss, it'll deal 20% of that, so about 4K damage. But it's also buffed by everything that your sword is buffed by. So if your sword is eventually after Tractor and Surges dealing like 60k, it'll deal 20% of 60k each pack hunter round. And on heavy attacks, it spawns 3 pack hunter rounds. So it's pretty damn strong, and you definitely want to be heavy attacking because you get those 3 extra pack hunter rounds. So that'll go into the thing I want to talk about next. There we go. Which is what combos you want to use. You can see here 3L, 1H. That means 3 lights and 1 heavy attack. Down here, I have 2 light, 1 heavy attack. And technically, the most optimal thing would be 2 light, 1 heavy attack. But it requires you to use chest mods, these Lucent Blade mods. You want 3 of them on your chest plate. And the thing about this attack combo is you have to look at your HUD. Every 2 attacks, you need to see, I can visually wait for this to start filling up, for it to deal full damage. And if you do that too early, it does like almost less than a light attack would, and you're waiting. So it's definitely much more skillful if you want to go for this. It is what you should be doing if you want to be super optimal with swords. But 3 light, 1 heavy, as you can see, these 100 ones are the highest DPS and total damage, and they're using 3 or 1 heavy. And it's just more simple, and I think more realistic on a boss like Herald, where he can sometimes go up in the air, and you're not always going to be able to do that heavy attack every 2. Which is a lot more simple. You don't need those Lucent Blades. You just do 3 lights, and then your heavy attack will already be filled. You don't need to look at it. You can look at the boss all the time, and it'll always work out. So that's nice. I had a weird moment here with It Stared Back. You can see that this is 1672 with It Stared Back, and here it's 16238. The weird thing about It Stared Back is it has 66 impact. Other swords will have, the Bequest is not a normal sword, it has 78, but this is also not a normal sword because it doesn't have impact, but most swords will have 68 impact if you go into impact and have jagged edge. But this has less. But on the health bar, you can see, not on the health bar, but on the damage number, you can see here, It Stared Back does 2908. With no buffs, Whirlwind Blade ×1, but that does not actually proc. If I go back here to the very start, you can see me with a different sword. This sword has 68 impact, but it does about 700 less. And I have that here down as it dealing more damage, but it doesn't actually, I've learned. You can see here I have DDT up. The damage number here, it starts at 370. This goes up to 23k, so it's about 23k this does. And if you go to the end here, you can see that it also does 23k to the HP bar. So it's not actually dealing an inflated damage number. I do not believe it does show you deal about 3 or 4% more damage, but it does not actually do that. So I'm going to change the number, I guess, right now. Yeah, there we go. That's an interesting thing about It Stare Back. It just randomly bugs and decides to show more damage than it does. I don't know. For Herald, you can do multiple different types of combos on different classes. For Warlock, I have a bunch of things with Horseman dumps, with Rain of Fire, if you're on well, which is obviously slightly less strong than going for like a full damage loadout, but it's still pretty strong. Rain of Fire Horseman is a lot of DPS, like at the start of your rotation. But if you are wanting to do a full damage and not be on well, you can go a Star Eater, Scales, Bond with Nova Bomb for the start. Still a Horseman mag, I would say is still beneficial. And then you go into a Void Sword. Void Swords this season are buffed more because you can see here at the bottom, if I scroll all the way down, they are getting this 4% buff. It's actually 5%. Like if you have a Tractor, you get obviously a 30% buff or debuff, and then with this you get 35% more damage. So a Tractor and this would be 35%. So this is the multiplier for a Tractor debuff. It actually is different for a 15% debuff. So if you are using a 15% debuff, if you have no Tractor, this would be different. But since most teams, I would assume, would have Tractor, this number is fine. So you're getting about a 5% increase, or in my case, because I'm using multiplying for this number, 1.038 multiplier to your void damage, which would be for your Nova Bomb and for your Void Sword, which does help you over surge matching your Horseman and your Sword to be arc, which just works out. So for your Warlock, you would probably run this. You would probably want a Lumina to buff yourself because you're not really gonna, well, I guess my rotation says Horseman, but realistically, you're probably going to use Lumina if you are a Warlock to buff your Hunters, because your Hunters are just doing so much more than you. But if you want to go Horseman to buff your damage as much as possible, that would be the best. If you're on Hunter, you would probably be running this. You want to run a Celestial, a Goldie, It Stared Back, and a Still Hunt. You're going to start the rotation with a Goldie and a Still Hunt, Prop Transcendence, and then just wail in with the Sword. With that 2 light, 1 heavy, or 3 light, 1 heavy combo, whatever you can really do. It doesn't matter that much. You can also light spam. Light spamming is not as big of a deal as some make it out to be with this sword comboing. You can still do a lot of damage with just light spamming if you have a good sword. Here I even have a note. If you are light spamming, you want to just use a Whirlwind Sword over the Bequest. Titan. Titan is an interesting one for Herald, because I have here some rotations with like Thunder Crash and like Horseman and Bequest and a bunch of stuff like that. Here I have like a Thunder Crash Sword. I don't have one for Herald anymore. Or Witness. I must have deleted that by accident. But if you're in an actual run and you're on Titan, you're probably just going to be going Banner of War and like grapple meleeing to give that 10% buff from Banner of War to sword damage. Because Titans are just doing so little damage to Herald in comparison to, well, Warlocks are actually probably less, but Titans are also low. You're just going to be wanting to buff your Hunters pretty much is the goal. And grapple meleeing, super high damage. You can honestly outdamage like Hunters with grapple meleeing if you're really good. Let's go on to Witness. Witness is a healthy boss for sure. He is actually the healthiest boss in the game now, having 26 million and a half HP, which is the highest, close by Crota and close by War Priest. But yeah. So Witness is, as you can see, even more dominant. There's the Titan one. It's back for some reason. It was gone. It's even more prominent on a Hunter meta. So all of these numbers are low besides this, which is obviously the rotation you want to use. Edge Transit is very strong, but we'll get to that. I guess we'll actually start on it. These numbers are technically off, all of them. All of them use Nova Bomb and Needle Storm, and the Witness often immunes these supers. Needle Storm will fly off into his hands and get attracted to his head, and they will deal immunes. And especially the Threadling explosions after your super will also get immunes. Nova Bomb obviously has the problem of being in the way of shots and then also tracking to his head, and half of those explosions will deal immunes. So these numbers here for these like Needle Storm, these Nova Bomb being high, in reality will probably be lower in an actual rotation, because the Witness is just a big weird boss and will have these problems. As you can see, I wanted to talk about how lacking Titan is, especially in my testing. I just really didn't want to do Titan. Titan is very lacking in Witness DPS. So I just did a Microchasm Trace Rifle rotation. It's really bad. It's super simple, as you can tell. You just shoot a Twilight Arsenal and then hold down the trigger and reload when you have no ammo. But if you really wanted to, if you were playing Titan and you were doing Witness, I don't actually think Microchasm is the best. You probably want to just do a Twilight Arsenal into an Izzy Sniper Apex rotation with Reconstruction. No auto loading from like Strand or anything, just Izzy Sniper Rocket, Izzy Sniper Rocket over and over again. And that's probably going to be better than this Microchasm rotation. Hunter is an interesting one for Witness. I put this into 2 categories, because you're going to be wanting to run 2 surges, one for your 2 surges, and then 1 for holster, for which would be for Still Hunt. You're going to be wanting to load that 6th shot without having to actually manually reload or dodge reload your Still Hunt. The damage loss, that 5% from those surges, absolutely does not make up for the time to reload or dodge. You can see that here. Actually, I did that. And this rotation is the damage dealer, is what I said. This damager is not having this. That combo of that snare bomb does take time out of the rotation, and only one person really needs to be debuffing the boss, which is that snare bomb. That's what it's doing. It's giving that facet of courage for your golden gun right at the start, and it's also giving that weaken from snare bomb. Only one person needs to actually be throwing those. So this damager rotation does not have me throwing those, which saves about, like a lot of time through the rotation. You're just throwing these nades in the animation, which makes one person optimal to do this debuff rotation, which is just every time you go to your rocket, you would chuck a nade and throw a grenade. Chuck your melee, your snare bomb, and then your grenade. Where is it? Here it would be. After you swap to your rocket, every time you just throw that, every single time. Because from Transcendence, you would have it almost every single time. Transcendence normally lasts like 20-25 seconds when you're actually dealing damage. And you'd pop it somewhere in this rotation. This assumes that you have Transcendence from the start and it just lasts 25 seconds, but you would actually need to do the animation. I would assume probably when you're like jumping away from an attack, you would do it to be optimal, but it's just hard to actually throw in a Transcendence animation because you don't know when it's going to be optimal in a Witness rotation. So I just kind of didn't include that. Let's go over loadouts for that. And I think that's it really. Obviously Hunters are really good for this raid. They deal amazing Witness damage. They deal amazing Herald damage. They're just all over this everywhere. They have the highest total damage. All of this is green. You can see all of this is like this brown, but that's because of this. There we go. You can see this is pretty much orange, yellow. This is all orange, red even for the microchasm rotation. And it's just all these nice greens at the top for Hunter. Hunter is very strong this season for damage, and Salvation's Edge is definitely a Hunter raid. So that is to note. But let's go over these loadouts for Witness. Here is the Titan one. It's obviously very basic, and I don't have a Starter Scales bond, so you just replace Armamentarium with a Starter Scales bond. Just add Clear and then Microchasm, or you can obviously do the Izzy rotation, but and whatever sniper you can use for that. It doesn't actually matter that much. Here for Warlock, where's Witness? Here it is. You would be wanting to use the Persuader. This was a gun that you could get last season from Season of the Witch Ingrams. Pretty much you would want any Void rapid fire. If you don't have a Void rapid fire, just use any rapid fire. It doesn't actually matter that much. This is pretty much just a proc cascade point on your edge transit anyway, which is going to be the main damage dealer. Obviously the Starter Scales bond to get your Needle Storm, if it even hits Witness. But what can you do about that? It's still probably going to be most optimal to use it anyway. And Strand is obviously the strongest in Warlock because of Threat of Ascent reloading. And Hunter, obviously you're going to be going for that 1 holster, 2 Surge, Still Hunt, Celestial, Apex. It's kind of just what Hunters use. You're permanently stuck on Still Hunt, Celestial for these boss phases. It's just going to be what does the most damage all the time because it's just so strong. But anyway, thank you. If you want to view this and watch all of these links for vid for reference so that you know what rotations I am actually doing in these, you can see the link in the description. And yeah.